Tuning with an AFR gauge almost feels like cheating, but once you do it once, you'll realize what an awesome advantage it gives you in tuning a carburetor. So here's 5 tips on how you can get the most out of your new AFR. I've done a bunch of videos on tuning with an AFR, and really, you know, the beautiful thing about it is just like I said, it feels like cheating. It feels like you're getting information that you shouldn't know. Is it perfect? No, not really, but is it the best tuning tool we have? No question about it. There is nothing better than tuning with an AFR because it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it that a lot of people just try to assume that they know what they're doing. That they assume, okay, well, I know it needs more fuel, so I'm going to add more fuel to it. The AFR will not lie to you. It will tell you everything you need to know if you use it properly. So here's 5 tips on how to make sure you get the most out of your new AFR setup and how you can make it work best for you when you're tuning. The first tip is just proper installation. Now this one's going to be a big one because really I think this is where people make the most amount of mistakes, is in the installation side of things. And really it boils down to a lot of different things. Now this one has a Bluetooth sensor on it so I can communicate with my phone wirelessly. That's why I love the fast stuff. It's very expensive. This is a single O2. They do have a dual O2 that I use on the Chevelle. Once we get back to tuning on that thing, you'll see that. But that's certainly a part of it. Make sure you got all the wiring done correctly so you know you're routed away from the heat. That you're going to a 12-volt key-on hot that doesn't change. It's always, there's no resistor in the line where you could drop voltage and lose power to it or read incorrectly. Headers and collectors, unfortunately, are a big part of this. I see people way too many times, and I get it, I understand nobody's got, you know, a fortune to spend on these things, and a lot of times you have to try to be frugal where you can, but really buying a good set of headers with a nice thick flange on it so you know it's going to seal up. It's got a good collector on it. You're using a good gasket. It meets up with the rest of the exhaust system and doesn't have any leaks. That's what you're looking for. And having a good header and collector is a big part of that. Now, these headers on here, I think they're around $400, which isn't a whole lot. I mean, they're a Flowtech Holly, you know, offshore header, but you can still get one with a good thick enough flange in it that you're not you know, chasing air leaks, which is a killer on an O2 system. Obviously, getting the O2 installed correctly is a big part of what's going on here. And if you don't put it in the right position, if you don't keep it protected, if it's not installed properly and you're getting a mix of leaked air between the collector and the header and it's giving you a false reading, it's going to be a big part of it. So getting the O2 sensor installed correctly is super critical. Another reason why it needs 12-volt power is the O2 sensor has a heater in it to heat it up because the sensor can't be cold to give it a good reading, and the exhaust gas temperature cruising through there helps out, but the heater in the O2 is the big part of it. Now, I am still testing this. So far, I'm not too upset with it, but that is the hooker mount that I decided to test this time. Always, 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 if you can do it, TIG the bung for the O2 into your exhaust pipe. It's the best way to do it. So far, I'm not overly upset about that. It seems to work out just fine. Is it perfect? No. Would I use it again? Probably not. But if you're doing a driveway type of install and you want just to install the O2 quickly, it's not a bad option so far. So we'll have to see if the gasket deteriorates or anything like that. But so far, I'm not upset with it. Last but not least, when you're installing the O2 sensor into it, the sensor portion up here, now this one's junk. It doesn't work, but don't ever touch the sensor part of it. Those oils on your hands will certainly throw that off, deteriorate it, and it's over with. The sensors are very, very, not finicky, but touchy. So, you know, don't run, you know, race gas through it. Run the type of fuel that they tell you. If the manufacturer of that O2 says you can't run E85, don't run E85 through it. If you can't run VP, don't run a VP or a C16 or any of those fuels with it because they will tend to destroy it fairly quickly. So getting the sensor installed correctly and not touching the sensor is a big part of it. So proper installation is your most important one, and it's certainly the biggest one to make sure you get the most out of your AFR. Second thing you should be doing, and I know this sounds weird and kind of counterintuitive and redundant and all that, but it's really not. Always, always, always continue to check your spark plugs. That means cutting them open to read a lean, rich condition on them. You can't just look at the tip of a spark plug and tell if it's rich or lean. I see that over and over and over and over again online, where people will just take a picture of a tip and say, hey, you should tell me how this is running. Yeah, and you get 20 guys go, yeah, it looks lean. No, man, that's a little too rich. You have no idea. You need to look at the base of the ceramic. We did a video on that. I would highly encourage you to go look at that and check that video out. It is very important that you continue to read those spark plugs. AFR gives you a measurement of what's going on in a moment in time. The spark plugs can tell you how something is operating long term. So even if you're using an AFR gauge, it's still very beneficial to cut open a spark plug and read it properly. The third tip is, again, another important one, but the AFR reading is just a moment in time. Don't make decisions based on just that moment. If I was to, well, this is a screenshot of it, but if I was to look at this AFR and go, oh, well, that's too rich or too lean, whatever the case may be, I'm going to change that. Give it some time. Observe it. Take your time to look at different situations and different conditions and make sure the engine's fully warmed up and at operating temperature. Don't make harsh, quick decisions. It's there to observe. It's there to give you plenty of time, so you've got plenty of data stored up in the old noggin there to make sure you can make the right tuning decision on what you're working on. I know this is a tough one. Again, we talked about it just a minute ago. I know everybody likes to save money and be cheap where they can, but invest in a good gauge. Sometimes those $100 ones you see off of eBay or Amazon or whatever may sound like a great deal. They may work initially. They may work for a short period of time. The problem with them, though, is every single one of them that I've ever worked with has had an issue with it or isn't reading properly. It's not reading the actual AFR. The heater isn't very good in it. It's using an offshore knockoff sensor. If the sensor's bad and you try to wander down to your local auto parts store and pick up a Bosch sensor for a GM, it doesn't plug, it doesn't play, it doesn't read what the AFR is saying. It's very, very complicated and will potentially leave you without a gauge. So it may seem like you're saving a lot of money initially, like most things that people try to cheapen out on, but in the long run, it just costs you more money than what it's worth. So get a good gauge. You don't have to spend, $300, $400, $500 on an AFR setup. I think that fast one is pretty expensive nowadays. The Dual O2 certainly is, but you can get a good gauge. Just look to see what kind of sensor it has with it. If it doesn't have a Bosch sensor in it and it doesn't tell you specifically, call the manufacturer, find out what sensor are they using. If it's their cheap knockoff one that's coming directly out of China, avoid it at all costs. The last one shouldn't need a lot of explanation, but use it in conjunction with other gauges. Now, I happen to run a water temperature gauge, vacuum gauge here in the truck, along with the AFR, but the AFR's got a tack on it, another reason why I like it. But having a good tack is always important. When you're tuning under hood, having an AFR that's got the tack on it certainly helpful as you're adjusting. You can watch the RPM go up or down depending on what you're doing with it. Very, very important. So use all the other gauges that are there for you. Certainly a vacuum gauge is probably the biggest one because if you can watch or record what's going on your AFR and on the vacuum gauge, sometimes it's good to see when the vacuum gets to a certain level, drops a certain level, you can watch the AFR and see opening events like power valves opening because all of a sudden it richens up with fuel, step-up springs on an Edelbrock carburetor. You'll start to realize those things if you can keep an eye out for them and think about it. So yeah, sometimes having a buddy, sit in the passenger seat and, film with their phone or something, your gauge is what's going on, is not a bad thing. You'll start to learn through those, and having plenty of information is always a good thing. So having gauges to follow and match Barry up what's going on with AFR, pretty big advantage of having that gauge. So there's 5 really quick tips to help you get the most out of it. Now, obviously, that goes without saying. You've got to have the fuel system set up properly. You have to have enough ignition timing in it. You make sure the filters aren't clogged. Make sure that the fuel system's routed correctly. Make sure it's got no heat soak or other issues that are causing it to run improperly. Back to timing and distributor. Make sure you got everything set up correctly and it's in good working order. The wires are in good shape. You don't have any worn cap or rotor or whatever. You have to pay more attention to the aftermarket stuff because they just don't operate the same as the old factory stuff did. It's not that they tend to wear out, but they certainly aren't the same type of material. They're more of a performance part, so they are a little cumbersome at times when you're dealing with them, and sometimes you just have to verify that it's in the right shape and doing what it's supposed to do and read what it's supposed to read. So those are all basic assumptions that you're going to have all the basics right when you're jumping into this. But hopefully those tips will help you out and get you all set to use this gauge correctly. So if you got any questions on this one, don't hesitate, leave them down below. I'm always happy to help you if I can. And yeah, if you'd make the decision to add an AFR gauge, it's not a bad one. You'll enjoy carburetor tuning a lot more when you've got actual good data to know the decisions that you're making or what you're thinking in your head match up with what the engine's saying. So leave your questions down below. I do appreciate that. We'll catch you guys on the next one. We'll see you.